Well, y'all seem to love it. So here we are again with some real ghost stories told by nurses because they're true. Well, hello there, and welcome back to Abilene Cottage. I am really mind blown by this whole thing. Y'all have really, I've had so many views on these stories. I really never thought of doing them before. I kind of just did it as a fluke, but you seem to love them. So as long as you love them, I'm going to tell them. Nurses, let me just preface this by saying it's hard to find nursing ghost stories. There are quite a few on the internet, but in general, they're hard to find because we do not, now we tell each other, like privately in the facility that we work at, when the subject comes up, almost every nurse I've ever known has a story of somewhere they've worked and something paranormal happening. But we don't get online and tell them, so you kind of have to drag them out. Let me start with two stories that you commented to me. And let me just say this, if you are watching this and you've had an experience, please put it in the comments, or you can email me at abilenecottage@gmail.com, and I will be glad to share your stories. Sometimes people just don't want to talk about it. So I get it. All right, so these are from you all. This one actually had two entries. This is by Teresa Yates. And she was talking about how, I think it's her daughter, at the long-term facility that she works at, they always open the windows when somebody passes there, to let the spirit out. And I never, I'm kind of skeptical about that. If you want to do it, that's fine. I'll open the window for you. Cover up the mirror, the whole 9 yards. But this really spooked me and made me think. Teresa Yates said, "There's a woman everyone has seen at the nursing home standing by the entrance at night trying to leave. But in most nursing homes, the door needs a code to open." That's true. "So they don't wander out. Even when they glimpse her and open the door for a few minutes, she can't leave. They say it's because someone never opened her window when she passed, and she could never get out the doors in life and can't in death. People have seen her for many, many years, even the residents. They all describe her perfectly, and that's why they have a quiet open window policy when someone passes, because they can't get out the door, and that's how the story goes. It's surprising to learn that a lot of nursing homes have that policy and similar experiences." Wow. Yeah, I can't think of anywhere I've ever worked where we had open the window policy. But that's scary. We should have. Oh my goodness. How many spirits did we potentially trap in there? Okay. The next one. This is from Old Fart Out in the Desert, and I did ask him if I could share this story. There's actually two, and these are really good. I once was a volunteer paramedic back in the 70s. Was in a hospital a few years ago being monitored for heart problems. All night long, code blues were going off in my area. I could feel death wandering around, and eventually a nurse popped through my door and stood there crying softly. I knew how she felt and said a few words of encouragement. She was surprised I had knowledge of what she was going through. She thanked me and left. It was only then that I realized my door had never opened. Wow. That's scary. That's scary. Okay, and then he goes on to say, "My deepest nightmare, PTSD experience, is an ambulance run from a town that was about 100 miles from any real hospital. I got a call for a preemie about the size of my hand in this backwoods place. The little girl kept coding on me, and the pain of the seizure was apparent from the grimace and spasms. All I could do was to pump her little heart with my index finger. She was too small to fit blood pressure cuffs. Stethoscope was too huge on her chest. I couldn't take any readings. She just kept reviving and then coding again. About halfway through the trip, I called the Midpoint Medical Care. Once was in there, and the nurses told me to get out before I die there, and asked for the doctor friend I had. There was something I was missing. I knew it was obvious, but I was missing it. I popped in with the baby and asked the doctor what I was missing. He told me she was hypothermic. I knew it was something obvious. I tucked her into my bare chest, and we went off again. The real hospital. This was rural Panhandle, Florida, back in the early 80s. About a mile down the road, Death sat next to me. I could feel him. The seat sagged. I turned my back to him and focused on the baby as she spasmed again. I pumped her heart again with my index finger. Death moved to the gurney. I wasn't using it since the baby was against my chest. Death just stares at me for the next 40 miles until we intercept a professional pediatric ambulance out in Tyndall Air Force Base. During that time, I don't know how many times I revived that baby. We follow the ambulance to the hospital where I lose it in the cafeteria. 20-something years later, visiting the area, the ambulance driver pointed to a girl and he said, "That was the baby. I lost it again." Wow. Can you imagine having Death sitting next to you and the seat sagging? Wow. That is incredible. But what I love about this story is the baby survived and he saw her as an adult. That is amazing. Wow. Good for you, old fart out in the desert. Thank you for letting me share it. I love that story. Okay, this was taken from a group that I cannot disclose who it was. The best I have heard is from a nurse who said that one night she was floated to oncology at the hospital she used to work at. She was given a patient who was passing away and had been unconscious for several days. At one point during the night, the nurse went into the room and the patient was at the top of the bed and looked at her and said, "Don't let them take me." The nurse was freaked out and asked her who was going to take her, and she said, "That black thing up there," and pointed up in the air. This patient died within minutes. That is scary. That makes you really think, doesn't it? Yeah, I've had patients that complain of their feet being on fire. I don't know if it's the lack of circulation. In some cases, I think that's probably what it is as they are actively dying. I've had some that seemed very scared, very, very scared to die. So, yeah, you always try to do the last minute spiritual stuff to give them comfort or to try anyway. But, yeah. One night I was caring for a dying male patient. He was scared and I spent quite some time with him, trying to calm and reassure him. Eventually he calmed and I left the bedside and went over to the nurse's station, which was about 15 feet away. As I sat down, I glanced over to him and there was a black shape standing over the bed, looking down at the patient. I was terrified. I am sure it was something evil. Yeah. There have been, I don't know if they're been proved to be fakes or not, but there have been several pictures that circulated around the internet, supposedly from cameras or whatever, that have shown weird stuff in the hallways and in the patient's rooms. So, I do not doubt that you saw what you saw. Okay, ready for some more? I used to work in a state institution for developmentally disabled. We were temporarily relocated to another building for remodeling of our building. Anyways, I was working one night, second shift. We had a locked unit. I saw one of the residents walking down the hall, very distinct gait and very distinct yellow t-shirt with happy face on it. I went into the ward to let staff know they had an escapee. This was a serious situation because this particular resident, Larry, would ingest absolutely anything from clothing to pins to belts. A bird's head. Literally anything. He was also very reluctant to go back to his home ward, hence why I didn't bring him back myself. He needed 2 escorts. When we got back into the hall, less than 15 seconds later, Larry was gone. We searched the entire building. Outside, downstairs, all wards. He was nowhere to be found. This whole search lasted less than 10 minutes because I had all extra staff looking for him. I was just about to call the house supervisor to let her know that we'd lost someone when out of the bathroom walks Larry with one of the staff. He had been getting his bath in the bathroom for the last 30 minutes or so. Kind of freaky. I absolutely, without a doubt, saw Larry in the hallway. I never would have short-staffed the wards like I did if I hadn't seen him. Like I said, very distinctive gait, look, clothing. I took a lot of rising that night. They all thought I was crazy. Anyways, come to find out the next day, after the story goes around that I'm crazy, Larry had an identical twin brother who died in that building 10 years previously. Wow. So I guess it was Larry's brother that was hanging out. Again, I don't know why people hang out in hospitals. I don't want to stay, but, whatever. Maybe he just wanted to be close to Larry. Who knows? All right. I work in a LTC facility, and we have had numerous reports from patients that they have seen a little boy. This boy comes into their rooms, turns their call lights on and off, and throws things on the floor. This facility used to be an orphanage. Also, there are stories of an old-fashioned nurse in the whole white dress and hat that would be seen going down the hall late at night doing her bed check and would go into someone's room and stay there for a couple minutes if they were really sick or about to die. Well, I guess one aide saw her a while back and refused to go down that hall for a week. The person's room she went in just came back from the hospital, still really sick. Uh-oh. Wow. Yeah, so I guess some nurses just can't quit working. Like I said before, I'm not one of those. You're not going to see me down the halls. But it's crazy, isn't it? They just want to keep doing what they always did. I'm going to be on a beach somewhere. I'm just saying. All right, we have time for one more. I've got plenty, though, so... we have a white figure that has been seen in the medicine room. Sometimes the carts are moved down the hall while you are in a room giving meds, etc. One of the male CNAs reported seeing a very tall black figure going from room to room several times. We have all seen balls of light floating around. From what we have been able to gather from old pictures of the property, the nursing home there was a mobile park at one end and a cemetery at the other end of the building. Everyone has seen a little boy walking around, but the freakiest part is when they saw wet children's footprints coming down the hall and followed them into the wall. And there were footprints in the snow outside that came right to that place in the wall. Wow. That is freaky. Yeah. It's one thing to think that you see an apparition, but it's another when there are wet footprints that go through the wall. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed these stories, and again, share with me your stories, especially if you work in the healthcare field, and I've got plenty more for you, so I hope you have a great week. I will see you next time, and, stay scary.